So I'm sitting here in my little cozy office and going through some messages and DMs. And one of the questions I've gotten asked before is what affected my decision to go back to school. So I thought I'd do just a quick little op-ed piece. So it made me sound very like a journalist official, because I love that. It's an op-ed piece where I'm going to discuss why I got fed up with the bedside and left. There's a multitude of reasons. I think that I ask this question a lot. I think that people ask this question a lot because it's sort of, when you get this thought in your brain of, am I going to go back to school? It's a big decision. You start questioning yourself. And so knowing why other people did it kind of helps guide your decision. So let me go through the thing. Well, first of all, let me do this. There is a huge shortage of nurses right now. We need good nurses. So let me just real quickly run through the reasons why you should stay at the bedside or why you should pursue a career in nursing. Number one, it's incredibly rewarding. The ability to help others. You go to bed every night feeling very good about it, except when you fail. Like when you make a failure, you don't sleep well, but it's rare, okay? When you do well, every day when you go to work and you give your best and you care for this human being, you can sleep knowing that you are doing God's work. It is incredibly rewarding. That is the number one reason for going into nursing. The number two reason is it is really good pay, y'all. Compared to most careers out there. I mean, you're not making what a doctor makes. You're not making what a lawyer makes. But you can make some very good money doing this if you play your cards right. So it's good pay to very reasonable work schedule. It's so flexible, y'all. You can work, if you work in-house, you only work 3 days a week generally. It's 4 days a week you're home. You can kind of pretend to be stay-at-home mom for those 4 days. So it's incredibly flexible for having a family. And if you want to do nights, you may be tired, but you can do the single parent thing. So it's very, very versatile. The other thing is there's so many options out there, right? You go into one field because you like it, you get burned out or bored, you try something else. There's so many different things you can do. And that also goes back to the flexibility with your schedule. You could go work in an ER urgent care where you're working not 12s, but 8s and off shift 8s. So it works better with your home life. So work balance to pay to rewarding, very respected career. It's a really good route to go. And we need people to do this. There is always going to be a job for you. There's never going to be a situation in which you can't find a job. Guaranteed market, all things considered, wonderful career to go in. Wonderful career to stay in. The longer you stay in it, the more money you earn, the easier your job gets. You become a resource for all of those around you. And you continue to do all of these good work. So we need good nurses. We need you to come into the field. We need you to stay in the field. When or if you get to the point where I was, it's time to consider going back to school. Number one, I always hop jobs. So when I get burned out, I'm the kind of person who needs constant stimulation. I need to constantly be learning something new, expanding my skills. And when I max out in one place, I would go to another. So I got to a point where I was working in an ICU. I'd been working in ICU for a lot of years. And I just felt like I wasn't growing anymore. And I found myself very frustrated. I was frustrated all the time. I was frustrated mostly with the system. Really, when I think about it, it really goes back to Medicare and our insurance. Our payer source dictates how medicine works. And that trickles down. So some of these stupid little things that, in my mind, don't directly contribute to a patient's well-being or my ability to care for that patient, but just add on to my workload during the day, really frustrated me. And it's not the fault of my charge nurses or administrators. I have to keep that in mind, but when you're in the moment, it kind of feels that way because you're just being dogpiled with a bunch of stupid stuff. I started nursing in 2000, long time ago. Very different type of nursing then. Much more autonomy, much more ability to critically think, much more like direct control over this person's life, minute to minute. I could make decisions on the fly without being punished for them. And that's changed. So, for example, If you've been a nurse for a while, you know there is such a thing as a nursing dose of insulin. You know darn good and well when that person's sugar is 294 that 4 units of insulin that's ordered ain't gonna do jack. So what do? You take that insulin pen and you just turn it to the right. Who even knows how much it is? You just give them some insulin, stuff it in there, sugar comes right on down. You can't do that anymore. Heavens no. You would get, first of all, there's fail safes with scanning things. You couldn't even if you wanted to. You know, and then titrating drips. It's gotten to a point now, even in the ICU, where you can't go beyond a certain dose of Levophed because the provider has put in an order for a titrate range of this and this. So even though your patient may be dying, you can't go up to 30 of Levo because it requires a physician order. So you've got to stop, call the physician, put the order. Well, you can't put the order in now because nurses are getting dinged for putting in verbal orders. You've got to wait for them to put the order in so you can scan it so you can then go up on your, like, how stupid is this? Like, I get the reasons why it has to be that way, but it's incredibly frustrating because all I ever really cared about was taking care of my patient and getting them better. And I felt like the system was preventing me from doing that. And then the double and triple charting. I got to chart it in the computer, but I got to write it on a piece of paper for me. And then I got to write it on a piece of paper for the charge nurse so he or she can sign off to the night shift. Like, I'm not doing that. Triple charting, you know how much time in my day it is? Charting restraints every hour, every 2 hours on the hour. And if it's not directly on every 2 hours, then we get dinged for it by our accrediting institution. Y'all, we've come so far away from the practice of taking care of the patient. It's become very much like checking off a box. And I can see this now in the role that I'm in when I'm talking to nurses, because a lot of times they can't see the big picture because and it's not their fault. They're so inundated by their directors and administrators for checking off the stupid boxes, because if the hospital doesn't prove that they've checked off the boxes, they don't get reimbursed. So it's nobody's direct fault, it's the system. And I found myself so incredibly frustrated by that. And I was working in an ICU, and it was like there was nowhere up for me to go. I was at the point in my career, it was like, okay, you do like most ICU nurses and you retire to the PACU. One of the things that added to that decision was the physical burden of the workload. I mean, nursing in the hospital in particular is very physically taxing, especially in an ICU and actually any unit in the hospital. You're doing a lot of lifting and turning and pulling. And in the ICU in particular, you have to turn your patient every 2 hours, and people are not getting smaller in America. So I often had back injuries. Even when I was working my core really hard, I had back injuries. So the physicality of it, the frustration with charting and leadership and administration, the maxed out learning situation, it was just the right call for me. But, you know, it was a hard decision because I was an older student going back to school, and I really had to weigh the financial burden of it with how much money am I actually going to earn in the final 20 years of my career. So that's why I decided to go back. That's why I left the bedside. I'm not saying you should leave the bedside. We need good nurses at the bedside. But if you're feeling those frustrations and those urges, check out some of my other videos that tell you how to go back to school well.